Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we're looking at rock opera movies.
Is this the real life?
That's right, the fun of these movies is that these were existing musical albums by popular rock bands or musical acts that were used to create an entire movie. And so the whole movie, all of the music is just from this one album, or that's all the dialogue there is. Since rock opera, it's an opera, and so there's no real, story being told outside of the singing. So again, there's no need for anything outside of the actual existing album, and there just aren't that many of them. And the three that I'm thinking of have interesting levels of adaptation and or change to them, so they're kind of a lot of fun. And I mean, either way, even if the movie is not particularly good, the music is still going to be pretty damn great. So our menu is going to include The Who's Tommy, Interstella 55555, the story of the secret star system, all spelled with fives, and Pink Floyd's The Wall. I'm not certain of the order that we're going in outside of just, my personal preference, because I don't think there's any sort of consistency in terms of the level of adaptation. But we're starting with The Who's Tommy, which I'd watched for the first time for this triple feature, and man, it is definitely The Who's Tommy. Was directed by Ken Russell. It tells the story from the album of a young man who is psychosomatically deaf, dumb, and blind after witnessing the murder of his father by his mother and his mother's lover. Later in life, becomes a pinball wizard, and eventually starts leading a cult. And yeah, it's definitely a thing. I don't know. It's like, I can't say it's bad, and I can't say it's not a movie of its time, but I can say I didn't particularly enjoy it. But I also have never really enjoyed Tommy, the music from it. I like The Who well enough, don't get me wrong, but it's just, for some reason, Tommy never did much for me, and so this big adaptation of it just, yeah. It's interesting to look at in comparison to the other films on this triple feature, because with the exception of Roger Daltrey playing Tommy, all of the music has been re-recorded by the actors in the film. Some of the actors are actors, some of the actors are musicians, so you get this kind of mid-ground. It's only acted as well as musicians can act, and it's only sung as well as actors can sing, so it's sort of kind of in the middle of everything. But it is very interesting to watch with the performances, because like Roger Daltrey is actually a decent enough actor, as evidenced by him acting in a lot of other things after the initial big fame of The Who, and then breakups and coming back together and stuff. Oliver Reed is pretty great, because Oliver Reed walks onto the scene and you just know everything about what Oliver Reed is about, and he can sing pretty well, with the exception of Tommy, Oliver Reed, and Tommy's mother, played by Anne Margaret, who is, honest to God, just the best part of this movie. There aren't any other really consistent characters. Everybody else is just kind of making an appearance, singing a song, and then leaving. Like I said, Anne Margaret, man, Anne Margaret is just going for it in this movie. She is amazing. She is just fierce and angry and passionate the whole time. And then there's a big scene where she's just writhing in baked beans and Worcestershire sauce and champagne, and it's I had weird reactions to it. I'm not going to say I'm ashamed of those reactions, but they were weird, and I'm going to have to deal with them. But everybody else is just all sorts of like little cameos, like Tina Turner playing the Acid Queen, and if there's somebody that you could argue goes for it more than Anne Margaret, it would be Tina Turner, because Tina Turner. Elton John plays the reigning pinball champ before Tommy unseats him, or more accurately, unstilts him from his gigantic legs. And playing his backup band is the rest of The Who, John Entwistle, Pete Townsend, and Keith Moon. So there's a fun consistency throughout the triple feature of the bands not really being in the movie and just having like little cameos, despite the fact that like the movie wouldn't exist without these guys. They're there. Eric Clapton has a good bit as a preacher. Tommy's cousin, played by Paul Nicholas, has a really great song. And then predominantly the latter half of it is all Roger Daltrey singing for Tommy. Oh yeah, and Jack Nicholson has a good little bit as a psychiatrist, kind of doing the Rex Harrison thing, and it was kind of a lot of fun when you think about this movie being filmed 4 years after Carnal Knowledge. So it's like Anne Margaret, Jack Nicholson reunion was pretty good. It is psychedelic, wall to wall. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it would be crazy just being a rock opera, but it's just Ken Russell really brings the weird to the whole thing, and it's a lot of fun. I just sort of didn't like it, so that's on me. As opposed to Interstella 5555, which this is just delight. I love Daft Punk. They are just, I like club and techno music. Anything with a good beat I tend to get into. And so the Discovery album is just beautiful, wall to wall. While Daft Punk was making the album, they had the idea to produce an anime that just uses the soundtrack, like as the entire soundtrack. There's no dialogue in this film whatsoever. There are very few sound effects. It is just Daft Punk's Discovery animated. And while there are lyrics to some of the songs in there, so while in The Wall and Tommy, the characters more or less are singing what is happening, there's no direct connection between the songs and the anime. The music and the animation match up in terms of tone and or action on the screen at any given moment based on the song, but it's not like there was a story in the album to begin with, so it makes it even more fun. It was all it was animated by the Toei Toei. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that animation company, and a lot of the designs were created by the classic anime producer Leiji Matsumoto, who did like all the Captain Harlock stuff, and so it has like a good 70s anime feel in terms of the character designs and the 2D animation, so it's just really fun. It's about a band in space that gets kidnapped by an Earthling record producer, or I forget, he might turn out to be also an alien. But yeah, they change everybody's skin, give them a backstory and some mind control, and then they start making them a popular Earth band until their buddy slash bounty hunter, who rides around in a space guitar, comes and rescues them, and then all sorts of action and revenge are taken. It's just delightful. Who would like? It was originally like, I remember when it originally came out, they were split up into the individual songs and used as music videos. For about half of the songs were released as music videos and singles, and Toonami back in the day just ran like the first 4 or 5 songs. I think it's like everything from One More Time to Crescendolls and or maybe Superheroes. So it was fun to see the thing as it was happening, and then to find out there was like a full movie to go along with it, and it's just delightful. There's not really a lot to talk about because there's no talking. It's just characters that don't even have names because nobody ever talks, and it's just a good time because Daft Punk and blue alien rock band people. It's just good. Finally, we have Pink Floyd's The Wall, which, not gonna lie, just one of my favorite things ever. I love the album. I think the movie's amazing. It was directed by Alan Parker for the live action, and then the animation parts were by Gerard Scarfe. I think Alan Parker described it as like the most expensive film school art project ever made, and a lot of the times it feels like that, but a lot of the times it just feels like a really, really whacked out 80s English musical movie, which, I mean, none of these are bad things. The album is about the fictitious rock star Pink, from his childhood to his rise to fame, to his complete mental breakdown and utter hatred of everything he has become and all the people that love him. You ever worry about rock stars and think about how much more productive they could be for the whole planet if they would just stop being so completely self-centered? But anyway, the movie does not star any of Pink Floyd. They have, like, Roger Waters intended to star as Pink, and there was going to be a lot of concert footage incorporated into the film. But Alan Parker didn't want him to star in it because apparently he couldn't act. Because, again, only as good as a singer can act, and only as good as an actor can sing. So they, of all people, they went with Bob Geldof of the Boomtown Rats and later Live Aid fame. and he plays Pink, and he's pretty wide-eyed and crazy throughout the whole thing, and I thought he did a pretty good job. And he actually does end up singing two of the songs. Predominantly, like, a lot of the songs are remixed and or changed slightly to fit the movie a little bit better. They're all pretty much sung by Pink Floyd, except for the two instances of "In the Flesh," or excuse me, there's "In the Flesh?" and then "In the Flesh." period. Those are both sung by Bob Geldof, and then backed up. Oh God, when it's the whole scary pseudo-Nazi rally, and then the "In the Flesh" music gets played by the full orchestra, because you have to understand Michael Kamen helped adapt all the music, and Michael Kamen's amazing at that. He did the Highlander soundtrack. He did the Baron Munchausen soundtrack. He did a lot of stuff for Terry Gilliam. He was an amazing music composer. But for these purposes, to give you a frame of mind for what the man can do, he's the guy. He was the genius behind the Metallica S&M concert. Turning all the Metallica songs into full orchestral rock. So the man knows what he's doing, and he's really good at it. Like I said, the whole thing is about Pink going nuts. Even before you get into the animated sequences, everything is pretty bonkers in terms of non-linear narrative, because everything is subjective to Pink and what he perceives as happening to him, and or how people are relating to him. And then you get these flights of fancy with the animation, and just like the wall being built and the marching hammers. It's sort of like a sinister version of Yellow Submarine in that respect, with like goofy images just being used for complete and total evil, but looking really badass and like early 80s like heavy metal type of animation. And it actually tells something of a linear story, because it's about a guy going nuts, as opposed to Tommy, which, man, I mean, you can't say that like A doesn't lead to B, doesn't lead to C, but it just sort of doesn't make sense for me. It's just like, okay, now he's a cult leader with the cross pinballs and everything. Other similarities is like the beginnings of the films having the absentee fathers in World War II, which speaks more to the Who and Pink Floyd being English and of a certain generation, as opposed to like Daft Punk being markedly younger and French. And Daft Punk did have a cameo in their movie as well, which was cute. With The Wall, I just like the music better. I just think Waters and Gilmour composed a much cleverer double album, because you have all these great riffs and motifs being presented earlier in the film, and then being presented again, but context makes everything different. Like Another Brick in the Wall, when you first hear it, it's all about anti-authoritarianism and being angry at all the crap you're being fed in school, and just how they're just ruining us. But then the riff will come back again throughout the movie. One of my favorite bits when it comes back is when Pink is leading, the fascists, and you hear them just like complaining about everybody and wanting to line them up and shoot them, and how they're all going to round all the people that are different up, and you hear the "We don't need no education" music coming up again, because this is what you get when you don't pay attention, you don't learn what happened before and how to avoid it. It's just a lot more operatic in terms of like the trial at the end and how bananas that gets. And it just, I love that it's all just happening in Pink's head, that like very little of this movie is actually happening to everyone else. It's all just, Pink, you're just playing a concert. That's it. You're not running a Hitler Youth rally. Just relax. But that's what's great about rock operas. Everything gets exaggerated and blown out of proportion, and so you get alien bands that are being dragooned into a horrible marketing system, and you've got a guy that couldn't deal with the sins of his parents for turning into a deaf, dumb, blind kid, and then somehow magically being great at pinball. So, man, Tommy just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It just, I don't get any of it. I just don't get it. But whatever. But all these are fun, and if you watch them all together, you just, musically, you'll just have a very good night. So do that, and happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys next week.